Greetings fellow Bond fans and welcome back to Some Bond Geek Talks About with me, your host, the name's Stevens, Henry Stevens. Everybody, how'd you do? I hope you're enjoying a good Bond book, a good Bond film, a good Bond video game, a good Bond whatever you want. And as always everybody, before we get into today's topic, which is my review and thoughts on the fourth James Bond film, Thunderball. It's going to be good, guys. It's going to be good, guys and girls. Let's just do a bit of house cleaning quickly. Can I ask, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, may I ask, why not? We've got great content coming. And if you like what I'm talking about, why don't you click the subscribe button and the notification bell icon to receive future updates and videos. And as always, everybody, a massive thank you from me to you. For anyone who comes and watches this show, it's always great having you along here. And don't forget as well to comment down below and tell me your thoughts as well on Thunderball. Right, everybody, so we're going to go into the fourth James Bond film. I hear, weird enough, online there's so much talk about it in a way of like good points and bad points and the controversy around it, and we will get into that. But here's just my quick initial thoughts on Thunderball for you. So, everybody, I'm going to say something very unpopular here, but I stand by my statement and I'll explain as we go on into this review. But I think Thunderball is better than Goldfinger. Don't hate me. Don't hate me. Don't hate me. Okay, everybody? Seriously. It's just my opinion. I really do believe that, and I'm going to go into it, but there are still problems. But before we go into those problems, one of the things about the channel is I tell you all about my personal journey and history of James Bond, and there are some great stories to go with this one. For those of you who don't know, I grew up a lot with my mother's father around me a lot. He came and lived with us for a while. And it was, really great because after, end of a school day, he'd help me with homework, and then we'd go watch probably a Bond film together, and we always ended up watching the Sean Connery because Sean Connery was his James Bond. And Thunderball was one we watched a lot, and I really, really do enjoy those memories of us watching it together. And, he loved the whole Bahamas and everything about it, he really did. But the other thing I think about when I remember Thunderball a lot is I remember it was on like late at night, like should we say about 9 o'clock, and I was about 6, maybe about the time, 6, 7. And I remember it was the whole scene where Bond is infiltrating Emilio Largo's place, in the dark, obviously he gets in the fight, goes in the pool, fight sequence, evading the shark in the tunnel. And I just remember watching it, I was like this, I really was like this. And literally, my mum came in and was like saying, bedtime, no, I want to watch this. And God bless her, she let me just finish watching the film. I say the film, the whole clip, then I had to go to bed. But I've always remembered that as like my first reaction to Thunderball, just seeing that whole sequence. I really, really, really do love it. So those are my little memories I really have with Thunderball, quite a lot actually. I also remember a lot when I was a kid in the playgrounds with my friend, pretending we had the jetpack and just going everywhere. And also, I'm not going to lie, the biggest smile on my face when in the From Russia Love video game you got to use the jetpack, like, oh, it was amazing. I absolutely adored it. And I think as well, I will say this now, if some of you who are maybe new to the channel who don't really know the history of James Bond, I imagine a lot of you already do it, but for the purpose of those who don't, can I just give you a bit of history about Thunderball? Because it's not all simplistic. Because Ian Fleming was trying to get a film of James Bond being made for years after he wrote Casino Royale. Obviously, eventually came to pass. That's what we're talking about. Obviously, he sold the rights to Casino Royale off to a TV network, which made the climax episode, which started a whole different issue of problems of that one. But he also partnered up with Kevin McClory and Jack Whittingham because Kevin McClory, the producer, wanted to make an underwater Bond adventure. And apparently, as the story goes, they all started contributing. It was all great ideas going left, right and centre. This amazing story. Had way too much to drink. Next morning, severe hangovers. No one can remember exactly who created what created what, X to the power Z. And it all just fell apart. But Fleming, and I'm going to say this stupidly, used the elements of this and made Thunderball, which opened up to so many lawsuits and problems. But the result of that was basically Fleming earned the book rights to Thunderball, but Kevin McClory got the film rights. And from that, obviously, the Bond producers had to make a deal with Kevin McClory, which means McClory was actually the producer of Thunderball, Broccoli and Saltzman were the executive producers, and McClory got the option to remake Thunderball later down the line, which opens up to another can of worms, which we'll go into later in Friday. But that's just a brief history of our interest. So it's not all simplistic, but as I say, before I go into why I think this film is better than Thunderball, there are some bad points in this film, and I'm going to bring them up. And weird enough, they're almost slightly similar to problems I had in Goldfinger. Number one is even though I think up to this point, this has been the best iteration of the character of Felix Leiter is still not fleshed out and given his own merit. I mean, this is just me. I don't know what it is, but maybe in a sense, like if James Bond is Robin Hood, Felix has to be Will Scarlet, just never as good, or just like everything James does is better, or just take orders from James. He's a CIA agent. He's probably one of the best agents CIA ever to have. Bond and Felix should be working together as compadres, not one better than the other. I really, really sincerely do believe that. But obviously that comes, it gets better as down. But again, Rick Van Hunter, really good Felix Leiter. I really always liked him as Felix Leiter, better than the other two in my opinion so far. But still, Felix Leiter is a problem. Another problem I have is the big villain showdown, because obviously the fight between Bond and the villain Emilio Largo, it's very clunky, it's almost slightly underdramatic, similar akin to Bond versus Goldfinger. It's just, it feels like tagged on, and that is a bit annoying. Also, one other thing. In Goldfinger, I mentioned how I didn't like the Kentucky sequence. Even though I love the health clinic section of the film, it does really slow down the film, and it takes a while just to get things going. It all pays off, and it's all really, really good stuff, don't get me wrong. But it is a bit of like, yeah, just get on with it, get on with it, get on with it, get on with it. Sort of feeling I have with that section of the film. But outside of that, I mentioned earlier, I think this film is better than Goldfinger, and I'll tell you why. Now, I think it's down to the direction and tone. Now, obviously, Dr. No from Russia of Love were directed by Terence Young. Terence Young also directed Thunderball. Guy Hamilton directed Goldfinger, and Guy Hamilton will come back later for Diamonds Are Forever, Live and Let Die, and The Man with the Golden Gun. And obviously very tonally different. Guy Hamilton was very much a slight over the top, let's have fun with it and all that stuff. Terence Young really tried to be like a bit more like a Hitchcockian thriller, very serious, quite dark in places, very serious, and really build up the tension. And to me, Goldfinger and Thunderball are on the same, if you will, plateau. But they are, you know, just one I slightly prefer in tone and direction than the other, which is Thunderball. I think Thunderball has a better tone, has a very much a sort of presence about it, and it's actually, in a sense, a bit scary at times. I think the mood and atmosphere when I was a kid, I remember with the guy in bandages, or the scene where Largo throws his henchman into the shark. It's actually quite, you know, like, it really was when I was a kid. You know, it had a real darker edge to it, and it felt, you know, it was more, I felt there was more at stake, more at peril than there was in Goldfinger. Because Spectre in this film are at its absolute peak of the whole franchise. The whole meeting, Spectre organization, the whole plan of stealing 2 nuclear weapons, blackmailing the world, just terrific. You consider the top, but in the film, they sort of play it as actually very serious, and I think you take the threat quite seriously, because the whole world is basically hunting for these nuclear weapons, and Bond just happens to be in the place where they're going to be in the Bahamas, which we'll get to that a bit later. But Spectre are just on point here. I think they're just so good, and we'll get to characters in a minute. Another thing I really like about this film is actually the whole location of the Bahamas. There's some really great sequences and locations. As I say, Emilio Largo's house, Palmyra, is a great location with great stuff done there. As I mentioned earlier, again, we talked about, Bond infiltrating. The whole thing of infiltrating, it was really good sequence. Bond fighting that guy in the pool, and then, letting the sharks in. Bond through the shark tunnel and all that stuff. And there was apparently Connery met a real shark in that. That's actually quite interesting to think. Thank God he didn't get eaten. But, it's great. Again, talking about tension stuff, adding in that, even though you've got the breathing apparatus, it can't last forever. And, there is a bit of tension until like a ticking time running out. Bond needs to escape this and escape this place without getting killed. That is a really, really great thing as well. Everybody, I will say this right off the bat. I know a lot of people disagree with this, but I will say it. I love the underwater sequences in Thunderball. I love the end battle sequence. I am a sucker for underwater stuff. I love it. I think it looks incredible. I love it when films show underwater and divers and fighting underwater. I just do like it. Personal preferences, I really do like it. And I felt it was such a great finale to the movie. I really enjoyed it, outside the fight between Bond and Emilio Largo. But we'll get to that in a bit. But let's now also talk about the opening title sequence before we get on to characters. Again, really great one. The Bond fighting that guy who tends to be a woman. That whole fight sequence was really good. And the jetpack. I'm going to do it again. Oh, so good. Aston Martin DB5 is back, and it's always such a beauty to see That piece of car machinery there, just absolutely spot on. Wish it could have been more. And the Bahamas were great. But everyone, let's quickly talk about characters now. Because let's just talk about the regulars. You've got Sean Connery, as always, so fantastic, so brilliant. He's it's incredible. I love seeing him as Bond. It's just such a treat for a Bond fan like myself. You know, the MI6 regulars, got Bernard Lee as M, again, terrific, great rapport with Bond. Desmond Llewellyn Q, another great little sequence. Moneypenny, as always, terrific. I have to say, the relationship, if you will, between Sean Connery and Lois Maxwell, the dynamic between these two, it's just terrific. I mean, it was okay with Roger Moore, but between these two, it was just absolutely fantastic. But hey, we got some more great characters to talk about in this film, and I want to talk about the villain, Emilio Largo, number 2. Now, for the record, if someone's going to say like the number switch in Spectre, I know. But obviously, Emilio Largo, I think, is a really, really interesting character. A very obvious bad guy, but it's the sort of bad guy I do have a soft spot for. Because he's one of those bad guys, he knows, okay, Bond is British Secret Service, he's 007. And, you know, when they meet, he goes, "Oh, yes, Mr. Bond, an acquaintance, old work colleague of mine mentioned you." You know, they know each other. And then, you know, intentionally showing his Spectre ring at him, saying, "I am Spectre." And then they have this whole sort of, verbal joust every time they see each other. Like, you know, they know each other's the bad guy, but, you know, they just don't do that little extra thing of trying to kill each other at that point. It's the verbal jousting. It's the fighting verbally. I love it. I have to absolutely love it. And I think Adolfo Celi was a really good choice, actually. I really always enjoyed him as a Bond villain. You know, I think of Bond villains, he does come up quite a bit. I really like that very much so indeed. Okay, let's talk about the Bond girls here as well. So off the bat, we've got Domino, the main Bond villain's sort of concubine, and obviously she is the sister of the brother who the Spectre got to kill, and steal the nuclear weapons. Follows on the lines of Honey Rider and Pussy Galore, a really, really great characters who are not bimbos, who are really interesting. You've got a woman who is essentially trapped, maybe not intentionally, and then when she realises what's happened, trying her best to do the best she can to get out of the situation. And heck, she's the one who actually kills Emilio Largo in the film. She's the one who actually finally goes, "You know what? No!" Smack, and saves James Bond. So give credence to her. I'm sorry, absolutely. But there's also that lovely scene after Bond and her, have sex underwater, which I'm still working out how that worked. Where, it's such an emotional scene where he has to finally tell her, what happened to her brother. And then, he has to put on the sunglasses just to show that, he sort of, toughness, because he doesn't want to show emotion and show weakness. I mean, that gets me. That gets me right here, everybody. But you've also got, if you will, the precursor to Xena Onatopp, Fiona Vlupe, another Spectre agent. Oh my God, she's terrific in this movie. This is one of those characters I go saying, you say Bond women are bimbos, look at this character. Tell me that. She is such a great character. I love her. She's so intriguing. She's so mischievous. She's so intelligent. She's so cunning. There's a wonderful sequence in, the Junk Canoe where Bond is obviously being chased. He is, he's actually, he's just relying on his wits, and it's Fiona Vlupe who's hunting him down. It's such a terrific scene. I love it when Bond has to rely on his instincts, but it just shows how incredible this character is. Really giving Bond a run for his money. She is such an incredible, awesome character. I really do love it. But everybody, that's really where I stand on Thunderball. I do think it's just better than Goldfinger as a personal preference due to tone, and just, some of the things that are in it, and it's just more of a case of which one do you enjoy more, say Goldfinger or Thunderball? The answer to me is Thunderball. I really do love this movie. But I want everybody, what are your opinions on Thunderball? Comment down below and tell me what you think. As always, everybody, my name's Henry Stevens, and this has been Some Geek Talks About. Goodbye.